Welcome back. I'm Barry Craig. Coming up next on the Union Label will be a conversation with Dustin Owens of IBEW Local 816 here in Paducah. Hello again. I'm Barry Craig, your host for the Union Label. I'm a member of the American Federation of Teachers as well as the Executive Board of the Kentucky State AFL-CIO. Hope you enjoy the program. The AFL-CIO includes 14 building and construction trades unions, and they all go by kind of a motto. It's called Earn While You Learn. My guest today, Dustin Owens, is going to talk about that, what it means. If you're not familiar with building trades unions, you're in for a little education today. Dusty, welcome to the program.
Thank you for having me, Barry.
Earn while you learn. That is a pretty neat motto.
It is.
So explain what it means, please.
Well, from the time, say you apply for an apprenticeship with us, from day one of being accepted, you have your union membership. So already out of the gate, you have a voice and a vote. There's not a whole lot of places you get that. From that point, you are working, whether it's a 4-10 schedule, a 5-8 schedule, you're working your 40 hours or more. You're going to school in the evenings, generally one night a week, sometimes two. So you're earning a paycheck while you're doing this. You're only ever out $100 a semester for books, $200 a year, $1,000 over 5 years. You do not have to pay anything extra back. So not only are you working and making a good wage, a good living wage, with good benefits, your school's paid for too. So when you come out of this program, you have not only this behind you. If you would like to carry it on further and get an associate's degree, only thing you're missing is gen ed classes. We have worked that out to where we're tied in for some accreditation on that. You got a great package, great benefits. You're not in debt. You don't have, like most, you come out of 2 years, 4 years of school, you're looking for a job. You've got a lot of debt, and the job's only paying X amount of dollars. It becomes really hard to pay that back.
Indeed. How old do you have to be an apprentice, and what are the prerequisites?
At 18 years old and a high school diploma or the equivalent, it does help to have some college experience, especially with some math classes. But if you scored high enough, there's always those exceptions.
Math classes, that lets me out.
Lots of AC theory, lots of DC theory being taught, which is unfortunately a lot of math.
You know, I would have never gotten a college degree if college algebra had been required at Murray State.
Right.
But instead I took field biology, spent the whole semester in the woods, liked it a whole lot better.
I guarantee it. One of the things with our apprenticeship that I will bring up, so like I said, from the day you're accepted, you're a member. You can attend union meetings. Your vote counts as much as a 60-year member. Once you have 420 on-the-job hours, which doesn't take long, your health insurance kicks in. Full health insurance, paid for by whoever you're working for. You can bank up to 6 months of that. You can be laid off for 6 months and still have insurance as long as your bank was full.
And that's so critical.
After 2,000 hours of on the job and the completion of your first year of school, at that point, your pension kicks in. Contract negotiations, it's always going to kind of move. It's never going to go down, but it will go up. But currently for us, 22% of your gross goes into a pension. Not off your check, that's on top. Something else you don't find everywhere, a 22% pension given to you.
That's a pretty good deal.
Yeah.
So, personally, how did you get into the union?
I grew up in a household that was union. I moved here at a young age. My stepdad was second generation. Most of his cousins, uncles, everybody was IBEW. And I got to see what it did for my family. That led me down that path. as I've gotten older and gotten more involved, it went from me wanting to tell people it's a good path forward to it helps bring up everybody, even the non-union sectors. Or not just organized labor, but all labor in general. We become the mark when it is talking full package, scale, bennies, everything. Here's the mark. Well, you take these non-union guys, if you keep bumping us up, this guy keeps going to his boss and saying, hey, I'm going to jump ship unless you bump me up too. Even the ones that aren't really fully skilled yet, well, they can come talk to us, and if they're not fully ready and fully skilled to be a journeyman wireman, well, we have programs where we can slot them in through the apprenticeship or these other programs where they might not be at the top yet, but they're not far away. They've just got to take some classes, show that they can do it, and we help get them there just like the apprenticeship.
One thing it'd be good to talk about is the different types of jobs that union electricians do. Obviously, wiring houses and buildings, but I believe the Western Kentucky RECC folks are
Yes.
IBEW. I know Mayfield Electric and Water System, they're IBEW folks. So what are some of the jobs you could do as an electrician?
It's kind of a misconception over the years. Most people think you talk electricians, well, all they do is electrical work, or talk pipe fitters, all they do is fitting work. All these plants prefer union labor when they hire them in. I mean, take USEC right now, we lose members nonstop taking jobs out there, as well as Calvert City. While you're working as an apprentice, there's a 99% chance that you're not going to wire a house. We just don't have a whole lot of residential signatory contractors. Would love to see it, but currently we just don't have it. You'll have some that will do a house here and there, but not many. The high majority of our work is commercial and industrial. We have a really, really good market share when it comes to both. It's not something you see everywhere else in the country for IBEW. It's normally one niche or the other. So there's a 50-50 draw whether you are doing banks, I don't want to say gas stations, we don't get into a whole lot of that, but just your standardized banks, buildings out at the mall, anything like that, or you end up in the industrial side, which is where I find myself generally. Plant work, whether it's chemical plants, powerhouses, paper mills, deactivated nukes. There's just a whole big grand scheme of it.
I know that General Tire in Mayfield, which was Continental before it closed, one of their classifications in the maintenance department was electricians.
Yeah, and see, like we represent out at TVA also, so you know, they're operators. A lot of the plants are represented by somebody, and it's probably a really good foot in the door when you're already carrying a ticket in your pocket.
You know, one of the most interesting IBEW occupations I've come across is back during the ice storm when these lines were down. There's a crew, I believe they're out of Chattanooga, TVA crew, in which a guy sits on a seat outside a helicopter and he threads these wires through. I had someone from your local, I can't remember who it was, several years ago, who talked about that. And there's the most astonishing video you ever see about a guy, he's IBEW, I believe out of Chattanooga as well, and he literally checks these wires by crawling along the wires like this.
Yeah, that's not for me.
And not me neither. And it's like, I cannot believe. So, and something else about the IB, 369 in Louisville, their members are work with the Kentucky Democratic Party staffers.
Yeah.
I believe maybe the public defenders in Louisville are trying to join that union. So it's not just electricians that are in these unions today.
Correct.
I mean, the steel workers represent nurses, so it's a variety.
I'm going to definitely get this wrong. It was one or the other out of 816, and I can't remember if it was the Kroger baggers at the checkout, and then also at one time, I want to say some of the telephone operators from somewhere.
Yeah.
So just anybody
Yeah.
can be represented by anybody. You
Right.
just have to reach out.
The Kroger folks today it's UFCW 227 out of Louisville. And of course, you remember several years ago, till they busted this union, the machinists organized nurses at Lourdes Hospital
Yes.
many, many years ago.
Yes.
So it's not just electricians like that. But again, and today, and the student debt is crushing.
Right.
And of course, you saw where the Supreme Court knocked that out. And when if you go to college, you might have a part-time job, but you're not going to make much money doing it as a student worker or working in the grocery store on the side. And I think this is what's really tremendous, is you go to work, you're starting to make serious money
Right out of the
as
gate.
you're being trained.
Yes.
And that's pretty amazing.
Yes, with ours, and off the top of my head, I'm not going to be able to give you exact percentages, but say our total package was $60 an hour. Well, right out of the gate, your first year there's 2 classifications for a first year. One is probationary period, and then from there you hit that second stage. But let's say that first year is at 50%. Well, you're already coming in and you're making pretty good. You're getting your hours built up to get your pension started. You've already built up to where you've got insurance coming in. That alone, sure, a single guy, if he's 18, still lives at home, maybe he doesn't think a lot about the insurance side of it. We have a lot of guys that come over into our apprenticeship that are in their young 30s. I've seen them in their early 40s come over with a family. That insurance means a lot,
It does.
because it doesn't matter if it's a single guy at 17 or 18 years old or a 42-year-old with a wife and 3 young kids, one who's already sick. That insurance is paid for by the company you're currently working for. It's a set hourly rate that gets negotiated. Every 6 months, they go to a meeting and decide whether things are good or if it needs to be added to. And that money just keeps going in for you.
And I think that's something that really ought to be stressed, and I'm sure it is when you're young, you're bulletproof.
Yes.
You don't think about getting sick,
Yeah.
but when you get married and you got kids, it makes a big difference. So
It really does.
benefits are so important.
Barry, I'm 42, and I'm the type that, unless I think there's a chance I'm dying, I tend to not go to the doctors. I should,
Right,
but I don't.
right.
But my son is 9. Well, he has doctor checkups all the time. I can't imagine either A, not having insurance right now or having to pay my own, or him being on my wife's and it being that much more off of her check. I do. Speaking of, I do have something coming up Wednesday, and I'm grateful for the insurance I have, or else there's no telling what it would cost me.
Yeah.
It makes you wonder, just out and about day to day, and you see people and
Oh, yeah.
families,
Sure.
and you see some of them, and you know roundabout what those two make. What kind of a struggle it has to be at times, and you wish that more people knew of the opportunities out there for them.
And that's a very good point. When I taught many years ago, I taught American history, and of course, my lectures some of them were on the history of organized labor. And I asked my students, how many of you come from a union family? Very few did. And so they didn't understand really fundamentally how unions worked, period. And I know once David Nickel, who taught sociology out here for years, he invited me and Brandon Duncan, the steelworker, to come and explain how unions worked. And these kids were just clueless. They had no idea. And I think that's one thing that unions do. Well, I guess you call it, to use an old Baptist term, witnessing. Do you do that? Do you go out and talk to people about unions who are not union members?
When I'm out and about and I see people, especially, I've had friends my whole career that work non-union in the electrical side. each have their own reasons. But yes, I've tried to explain to them just on the benefit side, not just the scale, the benefit side, how much extra that really is. And like you said earlier, you're young, you're bulletproof. Nobody thinks about it.
Mm-hmm.
The pension, I mean, my God, that's to me the biggest right there. If it wasn't for that 22% pension, I don't care what you make an hour. The majority of civilization would be broke and never able to retire, or broke and living off the state or the government in some way, shape, or form when it became time to quit working. Just because we're not good at saving.
No, we're not. That's why we have Social Security.
Right.
Yeah. One of the things, of course, I taught history and obviously have a vested interest in that topic. But one of the things, and I've talked to a lot of union folks through the years, and I know that the building trades are pretty good about emphasizing union history. That is the case. So you know how the IBEW got started, but a lot of the industrial unions don't seem to do that. And the case in point was this was an industrial union local president told me, he said, you get a kid who has been working in a grocery store for minimum wage and gets a job in a factory, the union job, and like you said, you get your pay goes way up, you've got tremendous benefits, and they say, wow, what a benevolent employer I've got here.
Right.
And they said, we need to do a better job of saying that those were wages and benefits negotiated by the union. The union got you for absolutely, and people died fighting for these benefits. The young people that are in the union today, I mean, are they aware? I know you do the apprenticeship program, that you do talk about some history, but are they interested? Do they want to delve into union history?
I can tell you in 2004, in the first year of the apprenticeship, a whole lot of that was history. Is it still today a whole lot of history? I'm not 100% sure on that, how much has been cut down. We're at a time right now where, I hate to use the word worker shortage, but work is so good everywhere, and they need more and more journeymen, no matter what field you're in, that I think they're trying to cram more and more in to turn them out faster, to get more and more journeymen out. So how much history is still taught, I'm not sure. I try personally, and I'm sure any apprentice that works around me probably hates me with a passion for that reason. I try to instill in them not only history from long ago, but history just that I've seen.
Yeah.
And changes that I've seen. We deal, almost like on the political side, we deal with a propaganda machine that never stops turning. I don't know that it's as bad now as it used to be, or as 20 years ago it was, but I think it still is. Most people hear union, they think overpaid. They think crybabies. Just the different things I hear from people that I know.
How do you address that?
Very carefully. Very carefully. To me, and we've said here, we've talked about the wages and the benefits and how important those are. One thing I failed to bring up is you look at OSHA, things of that nature. I try, anytime there's anybody talking to me about the possibility of organizing a unit. If you're going after money as your number one thing, I get it, but you're probably already messing up. To me, the safety, the work environment, what unions have done for that is unreal. You go back and look at when the IBEW started, I mean, you're losing 5 to 10 people a week. To where now, I mean, in our jurisdiction, it doesn't happen very often, thank God.
And of course, unions really pushed OSHA to passage. Absolutely
Your
right.
OSHAs, your MSHAs.
Yeah. And I've interviewed before United Mine Workers members, and they'll tell you straight away that UMWA mines are a lot safer.
Oh, I guarantee it.
And almost all these horrible mine disasters, those are in non-union mines. And you would like to think, whatever job you have, that when you say goodbye to your family in the morning, you expect to come back alive.
The same way you left.
It's the same way you left. You absolutely do. So let's talk a little bit about the union movement. One thing too, I think we ought to stress too, and this is another, you talked about the false charges that are levied against unions. One is that you can force a union member to give a political donation against his or her will. That is not true. Federal law and state law prohibit that. It's in a separate PAC fund.
Yes.
But that's one, time and time again
And
you
you
hear
can't
that.
force that either.
Do what now?
We can't force that.
Oh, no, of course, it's all voluntary.
Correct.
And that the funds that the union spends on representing you is over here in this pile.
Yes.
But the political stuff is over here, and you have to volunteer
Correct.
to do that.
Yes.
And that's another charge that you hear.
It is, and I don't, there again, it's just that propaganda machine that keeps on turning. I'll never really understand. You read back through history, I'm kind of a history buff in certain things and get down that rabbit hole of reading. I still, personally, I don't know whatever started that. Why was this so bad? Was it just the fat cat at the top that wanted to keep everything? And you look at today.
The answer to that short answer is yes.
I know it. I know. I just hate I hate that it is. I
Yes.
wish I could find
Right.
another
I
reason.
understand. Right.
That to me, you're always going to hear that. No different than, like I keep saying, with the politics side. No matter which side it is, there's always going to be that propaganda out there. But with us, no. You're asked, or you're not asked. You're slid a piece of paper. You can sign it or not. A COPE sheet, Committee on Political Education. We call it a nickel checkoff.
Yeah.
A nickel per hour. Would you like to donate into that for us to keep trying to more or less sponsor politicians that are helping us keep jobs, get jobs, keep the labor boards friendly for us,
Right.
versus booting anybody that's organized labor friendly completely off
Right.
and doing away with unions altogether, and then we all end up as a right to work state, and that's not good for anybody.
Right, right. Also talk briefly, we have a little more time left, that you are the Secretary-Treasurer for the Western Kentucky AFL-CIO Area Council.
I am.
Talk about what the Area Council is.
Well, it's a place where all of the building trades, we come together and do what we can, not only to support each other and to keep each other from going after, you have an outfit, an entity over here that would like to organize.
Yeah.
The last
But now the council's not just building trades. You've got industrial
correct.
unions, you got public employees. It's like
postal
an
workers.
umbrella body. It's
Yes,
like a
it's all of us.
It's like the AFL-CIO on a regional scale.
Yes, correct.
Yeah, and that's been around for many years too. Then there's also a West Kentucky Building Construction Trades Council.
Correct.
Now, what are the differences between the two groups?
The building and trades is going to be your building and trades, to where, like you just said better than I did, the AFL is going to have everybody. I mean, I've got to sit down and meet 2 meetings ago. A lot of the post workers, their president of their mail carriers, the president of the local area, which was really neat to get to hear their side. That's not people that I bump into with anything I deal with.
Right.
So to hear these other sides,
Yeah.
the food and commercial workers,
Right.
I've had some great conversations with their head. It's just not people I see on a day-to-day basis, to where if I go on a job, I'm liable to bump into 5 different trades. I go to a Labor Day parade committee meeting. I'm liable to bump into 4 other different trades.
Right.
But
Right.
to be able to sit in there and hear their problems and work together to try and form a solution for that, it's really nice.
Right.
I'd
You know,
like to see more people get involved in that side of it.
Absolutely. Solidarity is the old union byword. And I think at one time, people who were in unions, didn't matter which union, you all had this working class solidarity. And my philosophy has always been, it doesn't matter if you're an electrician or a plumber or a pipe fitter or a factory worker or a teacher, you're all working class. We work for a living.
Yeah.
Do you sense that that is not as strong as it used to be?
Yes. Yeah.
Why do you think?
Unfortunately.
Why do you think that is?
I really don't. to be honest, my honest personal opinion is no different than why I think with every one of our trades we have less and less involvement. We've become a society that unless it's impacting me right now, I got blinkers on, blinders on for it. I don't see it. It's hard to make people understand just because they're not coming after you right now. They're coming after him or him. You're next.
Mm-hmm.
And it's just so hard to get people to stand together now. They don't want to until it's time that it affects them.
Right. And you know, there's so many examples of this, and to me, the most blatant example is General Tire in Mayfield, which they busted a union and moved that production overseas into non-union facilities. Not only was that plant shut down, they ground it up into gravel.
Yeah.
And to me, that is so symbolic of that.
Yeah.
And you go back and you see in Mayfield, where I grew up, we lost an Ingersoll Rand factory. That was machinists. The Merritt Clothing Company, that my grandmother worked there. That was United. Well, it was the Amalgamated Clothing Workers back then. This is all visible. The deindustrialization, if you will, of Western Kentucky. The railroad shops. Gosh, at one time, what, a couple thousand people?
Correct.
And I don't know how many they have now. And then, of course, the atomic plant. We'll always call it the atomic plant.
Yeah.
It was a oil company called atomic workers, then steel workers. So, can people not see all around them?
No, I don't. I honestly don't think they do anymore. I don't know when they did. I'm sure there was a time they did, but unfortunately, I wasn't in there then.
Yeah.
Every month in my union meetings, there's a few of us that look at each other and say, what is it we have to do to get more people here, to get more people involved? When you only have a select few that you can rely on for everything, people start to burn out. And you don't ever want to get to that point, because then who's left to keep trying to fight it?
Mm-hmm.
And it's not just your industrial places. It's not just your trade unions that they go after. Hell, it wasn't that long ago I was at Murray State standing in there fighting for the teachers when they were coming after their pensions.
Yeah, absolutely. And some of them did join the United Campus Workers. In fact, I'm a associate member of that too. Absolutely. And that's the thing. The
last thing they ever want to see is everybody stand together.
Absolutely. And that's the motto of our state. It's a good motto. United we stand, divided we fall.
That's what keeps that propaganda machine turning, is they do not want to see us stand together.
It's fear. It's fear. Yeah. So, well, we're out of time. Enjoyed this. Hope we can have you back one of these days.
Thank you for having me, Barry.
And like I said, enjoyed it. Hope everyone enjoyed it. It was good to be back. It's been 10 years since I did this, and I thought, let's do it again. Why not, in retirement? I'm Barry Craig. You just saw the union label resurrected. I guess let's call it that. And we'll see you next time.